talk about the recipe for spiritual success. This will not be exhaustive, but this is going to hit some high points. First point is that impatience and novelty and fads, jumping from one thing to another, thinking the grass is greener on the other side of the fence, that's not the way it works. If hopping impatiently from one thing to another, one church to another, one idea to another worked, then we'd have one of the most spiritual countries in the world. I think you'll agree with me. We do not have one of the most spiritual countries in the world. What it takes is persistence to lead deep, deep into the Word, and that's where you get your satisfaction. It is a marathon. It's a long, crazy marathon, if you would. Revelation 2:10 says, "Be faithful unto death." Matthew 10:22, "He who stands firm to the end." And again, Christ was saying, Matthew 24:13, "The one who endures to the end." So what we're looking for basically overall is just a consistent, focused, unwavering commitment to spiritual growth. So we're going to keep pressing into it and pressing into it. Now, I will say in the very beginning, it's easier, by way of illustration. When you first converted, you said, okay, I got to quit cussing now. That was so easy and obvious, wasn't it? You get over that one later on, you're looking a little more fine-tuned things like attitudes and thoughts and dispositions that you're learning to bring every thought into captivity. And that's not as easy. So what I'm going to tell you overall is to drill one well and drill it very, very deeply. I love the analogy that says something like to drill a well, to get to water, you got to dig 1,000 shovelfuls. But if you go out into the field and you do one shovel there and one shovel there and one shovel there and one over there, and you have each shovel in a different place, you're never ever going to hit water. To get water, you got to have the 1,000 shovelfuls all in the same spot. And so what I'm going to say is focus and drill really deep right in, basically in your own heart. So recipe part number one is a willingness to be unpopular. In John 15:18, Christ said, if the world hates you, you know that it hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world would love its own. Now pause right there. If the world's giving you too much agreement, too much pat on the back, you need to back up and look and see, well, am I really all that different? But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, because of this, the world hates you. When we really, really get in line with Christ, the world is not so much behind us, supporting us. Spirituality is a different path than the secular path. And secular people really don't get it. They don't fully understand that absolute commitment to that path. But this is what we do. We are learning to be different than the world. As Paul would say, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind here in Romans 12 and verse 2. That means we're learning to think in an entirely different way, which means when the world looks at you, they're like, I don't get it. I don't know what this nut's thinking. And that's okay, because they're on a completely different standard. We're over here on God's standard, and we're trying to do it God's way and learning to think like God would think as much as a human can to, imitate Christ. And that puts us in a completely different realm. Now, you can think ecclesia if you want, which would be appropriate here. We are the called out. So we're no longer running with the world. So we learn to be unpopular. And we sing, this world is not my home. I'm just passing through. My treasures are laid up somewhere beyond the blue. And that's the mindset that we're after. This world has nothing to offer me. I'm just running through it. And we are just running through it. Remember Hebrews 9:27, it's appointed that a man wants to die. So we are leaving it. So basically we're planning for that eternity on the other side. And when we make that spiritual commitment, the flesh is not going to be happy. Because as Galatians 5:17 says, the flesh lusts against the spirit and the spirit against the flesh. Now, I think that's profound, because what he's really telling you is you are primarily your own battleground. Your flesh is going, oh, yeah, I want that. And your spirit's going, oh, no, you don't need that. But I want it, or you don't need it. And so much of the battle's just right here. Can you say between your own ears, or maybe something along that line? So if necessary, can you go it alone? Are you willing to stand alone? and say, no, I stand with God. And I may not get any recognition for it on this side of the earth, the tombstone. That's fine. The only recognition we really want is what? To stand before the judgment seat of Christ and hear him say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. That is the only recognition you need. That's the one you're after. So then we're going to take this willingness to be different from the rest of the world, which is tough. Let me hit that one more time. One of the biggest fears people have is that of being rejected and not fitting in. That is a really common fear. That's one of the reasons we need a local church family where we know we have a place we fit in and we connect, because out there, if we fit in with them, as I said earlier, that may not be a good indication. So now we're going to go into personal growth. 1 Corinthians 9:27, I discipline my body, I make it my slave, so that after I preach to others, I myself will not be disqualified. So here's Paul saying, I'm looking at how to grow. This is maybe the toughest aspect there is, because growth is going to be a perpetual thing. It's going to keep going on and on and on. And so those belong to Christ have crucified the flesh with its passion and desires. And those passions and desires, I would advocate that there's a growing curve here. And as I used that illustration a while ago, when you first converted, so, the things that you had to crucify, let's say vulgar language, just for an easy example, and desires to run with the world. And then as you start moving on down the road and you get better and better, we get to that almost extreme end of 2 Corinthians 10:5, where he says we learn to bring every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. And I do point out that it doesn't say never ever have a bad thought. I haven't figured out how not to have thoughts pop across my mind, but I do have enough sense that when a thought does pop across my mind, go, that's not a good thought. I need to let that one pop on out. And you can let it pop on out, and I know you can let it pop on out, because I know there are a lot of people that what you say to them goes in one ear and out the other, right? Now, if I can do that with what you're saying, then I can do that with what I'm saying to me. That's just my simple logic there. So we have this relentless commitment to growth. It is that athletic mindset that says, I'm not as good as I could be. I'm going to struggle for it, because athletes, and when we get above 1 Corinthians 9:27, about 3 verses above that, he uses the athletes. And so they don't just train sporadically. Look at the guys on the top, the ones that are on TV, the ones that you're admiring during football season or basketball season or whatever season you like to watch. Those guys playing at that upper level, they don't sit around 5 days a week and then show up for practice from 9 o'clock to 12 Sunday morning and go, well, I got all my practice in for the week. I'm ready for the national championship. These guys live a crazy life of dedication and devotion and total commitment to their sport, and that's what makes them great. Now, Paul uses that analogy, and he's making a point for us. We do the same thing. We live a life of crazy commitment to the spiritual path, because as Brother D would always say, if you miss heaven, you just miss all that there is. So we keep pressing. Now, you know how I say it in times past. Let me say it really quickly. First Peter, what is that, 1:15 and 16 says, be holy as God is holy. So if you're already holy as God is holy, then you can disregard this whole lesson. But if you're not, then you have something to reach forward to. You have some ground to cover. And Paul would say, and incidentally, we think he's early 60s at this time, nearing the end of his life. By tradition, we don't know this for a fact, he was beheaded somewhere between the age of 60 and 65. But we don't have a biblical record of that. That's, like I say, long-standing tradition. But to say that he would have been in his early 60s at this time, that's pretty solid. You can pretty much go with that. And at this age, he's saying, brethren, I do not regard myself as having laid hold of it yet. He doesn't say, boom, I'm there. I've got this. I've got it locked down. I'm in. He says, I do not regard myself as having laid hold of it yet, but one thing I do, forgetting what lies behind and reaching forward to what is ahead. This is that who's the old ancient character Sisyphus, who's pushing the ball up the hill endlessly. And in the mythic stuff, you're like, man, I don't quite get that. But in modern research and psychology, it is that people without a goal, without a purpose, without something they're reaching for, lose the value, the depth of life. Man needs something to strive for. We climb a mountain. You get to the top of your mountain. Now, hear me careful because I don't want to take away your momentary victory, right? So you're climbing a mountain. You get to the top of the mountain. You plant your flag for a minute and you enjoy the view and you kind of like revel in everything you put into it. And then after the celebration's over, because it is going to end, you go looking for another mountain. And you want it to be a higher mountain. And you're going to do the whole process over again. It's kind of crazy. But entrepreneurs who start a brand new business, and there's a bunch of opportunities out there like crazy. We live in one of the most blessed times we can live in as far as opportunities go. They get out there, they start a brand new business. So some of you will relate to this. I get my razor blades for shaving in the mail once a month. And it's a wonderful little subscription, and you just order it, and once a month they show up, and I don't have to go to Walmart, and I don't have to go looking for them, and they're really a good price. And I'm like, that is great. Well, an entrepreneur started that. He had this great idea, what if we? And he got in there and he did it, and he built the business up, and he got it to the point where he could sell it. What happened is he got to the top of his mountain. He planted his flag and he enjoyed his victory for a time. And then he went and sat on a beach down in the Bahamas for the next 40 years. No, 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 that's not the way that mindset works. They sell it, they celebrate for a week, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months in some extreme cases, and they go, okay, it's time to find the next mountain. Let's climb higher. And they go looking for the next opportunity. That's kind of similar to what we're looking at here. We're going to keep reaching for what lies ahead. I'm not in heaven yet, right? I mean, I like my pine bluff, but I'm not in heaven yet. So it's an ongoing process. So we're going to put to death our members which are on the earth: fornication, uncleanness, passion, evil desire. And you really got to sit with that for a while. We don't have time to sit with it long here. Fornication, you go, oh yeah, sexual immorality is bad. Okay. Don't be that simplified. What about spiritual fornication? Oh, got a little deeper than it. Uncleanness. What's uncleanness in your mind? I don't know, but I want to be thinking, what's uncleanness in God's mind? And in God's mind, I know from 1 John 3:15 that if I just hate someone, that is as unclean as being a murderer. So don't let uncleanness just be something really vile and wicked. Try to get your mind in God's perspective. Passions. What are your passions hooked on? There's a lot of stuff there. Evil desires, covetousness. Well, that covers a lot of territory. So you can sit with that one for a while as you ponder, okay, how can I keep reaching forward to what is ahead? It's a persistent inner battle. And you're going to fall sometimes. I think this ought to be encouraging. Proverbs 24:16, a righteous man falls 7 times. It's going to happen. You're going to fall on your face. Don't go, well, I'm no good. I've ruined it. It's just that I'm getting back up. Why did I fall? Why did I stumble? What did I do wrong there? Well, what have I not resolved yet? What issues am I still dragging along with me? And this is a deeply complex thing, but if you're going to come to that total inner healing, you're going to do that. And in the process, you're going to more and more become like Christ, which is what we do, right? So we brutally assess ourselves. Now, emphasis on self. I didn't say brutally assess somebody else. That's too easy. Don't do that. But brutally assess yourself and look for your way to move forward. Now, number 3, we're going to totally trust in God. And the reason we've got to do this is Jeremiah 10:23. I know you've heard it 100 times. I know, O Lord, that a man's way is not in himself. Okay, wait a minute. If it's not inside me to direct my own steps and it's not inside you to direct your own steps, then who do you better have? You better have somebody on your side that knows the steps you need to take, right? Because Jeremiah 17:9 would tell us that our heart is desperately wicked, desperately sick, as the New American says it. And so what happens is the heart can deceive us. Self-deception is a major challenge. It is a crazy major challenge. So in Revelation 3:15, 16, 14, right in there, that's the lukewarm church. Had you gone to them and said, look, guys, I think you're lukewarm, do you think they'd go, I think you're onto something. I believe we are lukewarm. I don't think you would have got that response any more than you'd get it if you went to any member of our congregation and said, look, I see you're attending services about twice a month and you're missing the rest of the times. You're kind of sporadic. I think you might be lukewarm. Now, it would be obvious to everybody looking on, right? But the person who is lukewarm would bow up and go, I ain't lukewarm. You just don't understand what's going on in my life. And they would get really defensive. So this is why this is your major challenge. Ultimately, the only person that's going to get through to you, with a few exceptions, is yourself. Being brutally honest with yourself. So you got the options. You can go through the motions. You can play church. People do it all the time. Or you can really be thriving because you totally trust in God and His word's it. And that's it. Your word's a lamp unto my feet. It says, seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness. Yeah, but no, there's no yeah, but. Take up your cross and follow me. No, but no, it's a straight and narrow road, but I want to widen it. No, there's no yeah, but. If we're going to totally trust God, then we totally trust God. And I've got it in black and white right there on the page in front of me. If you're using red letters, sometimes you have it in red and white. And that settles it. Isn't that the old saying? God said it, that settles it. And so even though He slayed me, yet will I trust Him. I quoted New King James. I will hope in Him, New American Standard. And that's the total level of trust that you want to get in. So think about it this way. If God began taking away the things you enjoy, and I'm talking about things that are going to end in the tombstone anyway, it's just a matter of time. So I want you to think, what do you enjoy? What are you really looking forward to? Let's just say this week, because most of us kind of have a rough sketch for our week, right? What if God said, no, I've decided to take that away from you? You're not going to do that anymore. Now think about Job. Think about what all God allowed to be taken away, okay? And God takes it away. This is down to children for Job. Can you still trust Him? Can you still say, Lord, I know you know what you're doing. I'll confess I don't get it. And had I had the choice of making my own plan, that would have never happened. But I know you're smarter than I am. And I know I need to get behind you. If God began to take away some of the things you enjoy, could you really still say, though He slay me, I will still hope in Him? That's tough. That's really tough. But this total surrender is not an option. Giving it all up is more of a mindset. It's more of an attitude for us. Because who's really going to come into your life and take things away? I know everybody thinks that the election doesn't go your way, America's over. I know people have been thinking that since Jimmy Carter. Now, Jimmy Carter going back a long ways, right? And America's where? Well, it's a mess. I won't argue that. But I still got my wife. And I had her roughly around the time of Jimmy Carter. We go back a long ways. And I've still got the things that I enjoy in my career, and I still have a roof over my head, and you can tell I eat way too much. And since I'm not going to announce it's my birthday tomorrow, I'm going to eat way too much today, you know. So really, I don't have a big fear of the external threats. Oh, I get it's technically possible that China could decide they're going to come over and invade, you know, and take away everything we have. I get it, you know, but really I'm not too worried about that. The real thing is between my own ears, my mindset. my attitude. And I think this may be harder than literally losing it and still trusting God, because I still get to keep it all in one hand and totally trust God in the other, and have to really find what my heart is saying there. Navigating the highs and lows. You can have a great time, a great season, a great month. That doesn't prove you're totally great. You can have a terrible season. That really doesn't prove you're totally failure. In Philippians 4:11 through 13, we're running out of time, so let me kind of summarize this. Paul had been high, he had been low, he had been starving, he'd been full, he'd been through it all, and he said he learned how to do both, how to navigate the highs and the lows. Peter was a great example of highs and lows. Peter got pretty low sometimes, and yet he learned to work his way through it. So in James 3:2, we all going to stumble in many ways. We're all still in the training. None of us have this down solid. Now, to use the martial arts analogy, some may be more to white belt range and some more in the brown and black belt range. That's fine. But in the martial arts analogy, black belt just means you're ready to start, which is an interesting concept, isn't it? So you're going to make mistakes. Nobody does everything perfect. And so the question is, how are you going to navigate those mistakes? And you're not going to let a single event define you. We have all made mistakes, but we are not a mistake. There's a big difference of it. If you define yourself as a mistake, now you got a really big problem. So we're going to navigate the struggles, the trials of life, because that's just what we do. James chapter 1, verse 2 through 4, we count all joy and fall into various trials. And we keep regaining our balance, and we wobble, and we regain our balance, and we keep pressing forward. And then number 5, you need a trusted team. You've got to have an inner circle. And by inner circle, I'm really talking about the very, very few. You may have just one or two people that you can really open up to and discuss your spirituality. That's what I'm thinking, inner circle. The person that can know all the snakes and the demons that are in you and not run away from you, but say, no, I'm here to help you work through all of this. I'm still on your side. I know there's a lot of garbage in here, but I'm not rejecting you for it. Now, as I always say, be really careful about who you pick as your inner circle. Be very careful. Don't open up to everybody. Everybody's not your inner circle. Can I say it that way? So a man of too many friends comes to ruin. Be careful with that. You look at that again. If you have too many friends, it's going to run you. And then there's a friend who sticks closer than a brother. We're looking for those quality, deep connections where we can really just open up the closet door, so to speak, see everything that we would normally hide and go, okay, brother, let's press on to some higher ground. So you can have a lot of shallow, delightful acquaintances, and I'm not really saying they're wrong. Most of our acquaintances are shallow. Sorry, but you just can't be best friends with everybody. Doesn't work that way. Time constraints just won't allow it. So you get a whole bunch of shallow acquaintances, and you get 2 or 3, maybe, that are really deep. And it's not a lot. Christ had 12 disciples, right? One of them was going to betray him. But when he went to the Garden of Gethsemane to pray, who did he take a little deeper into the garden with him? 11 of them? 9 of them? 2 of them? When he went to the Mount of Transfiguration, why did he take all 12? I can't answer that. But what I see is there's a circle of the 12, and then there's an inner circle. And there's the disciple who's referred to as the disciple whom he loved, which meant some special relationship there. So you want that special team. You want to be connected. People who separate themselves and they're always just pushing everybody away. They don't want anybody telling them what to do, how to do it. They got it all figured out. They don't need nobody. And so they separate themselves because all they want is their own. And that's Joshua 24:15. That's the way they want to go. They do that. Most people don't want to see their flaws. They don't see it as moving upward. If I had a little longer, I'd use the sports analogy there, where in sports you want to see your flaws if you want to excel. But most people in spirituality just prefer a self-deceptive fantasy. And like, hey, I've already got it together. I'm ahead of Paul. Iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. That's that's that team, that trusted inner circle we're talking about. But you have to desire to be sharpened. That's the key. And I'm running out of time, I know, but I got to say, you got to want it. And if you want it more than anything else, no one can stop you because God's on your side, and God plus one's a majority. There's no stopping you. But if you don't really want it, and you just want to, a pat on the back for being a good old boy kind of thing, call it the lukewarm, or those who had the reputation that they were good, but actually they were dead, or you can do the Matthew 7:21 through 23. You got to hunger for it. You got to really, really want it where you choose to prioritize it, not an outside force. That prioritizing is coming from within your own hunger. So success, it's absolutely possible. It's hard, but failing's hard. And I love this idea. So choose your hard. Life's hard. Pick which way you want to go. Here's the very last slide. It's all our choice. It's your choice. There is a way to excel. There is a way to keep pressing on the upward way. New heights I'm gaining day by day, still praying as I onward bound. Lord, plant my feet on. It's there. It's the door is wide open. It's almost as the angels in heaven beckon me, hey, come on up. We got to look at the sandcastles we're building and go, yeah, that's not a lot of fun. I think I'll go that way. So last question, which way are you going? If you're going the right way, you stay the course. If you're not, you need to make a change, and we can help you publicly. Let us do so while we stand and sing.